I'm Amy Dolan, and this is the Feeding People podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our second episode of the Feeding People podcast. I'm so happy we're here for a second night around a beautiful table, eating beautiful food with a wonderful guest. This is going to be great. As you know, this show is about the magic of the table and the power and love and beauty found in food. And I'm so happy this first season, my friends are sitting down at the table with me in order to talk about food and how they feed people. So here we are at the second episode. I'm so thrilled. My friend Rich Havard is here at the table with me tonight. Welcome, Rich.
Thanks, Amy. So good to be here. And you nailed my last name. Everyone gets it incorrect, but you got it. So thanks.
That's it. That's the whole podcast is just saying your name.
That's
Let's
great.
Just keep doing
Let's
that.
Go.
Rich Havard. I'm going to say your full name like the whole entire time.
Perfect.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. We are eating a delicious dinner. We've just finished, actually. We were very hungry, so we scarfed that down. We had some good vegetable tikka masala tonight. That's one of my favorites. And did you like it?
I loved it. It was really good.
It's always kind of dangerous to
Right,
ask
I know,
a guest,
right?
like,
You cooked
did you
it,
like
so I hope
my
I liked
dinner?
it.
Okay, good.
It was great. Much better than what I would have made tonight. So.
Oh, yes. Okay, what on like an average night do you make?
Oh, I think I eat the same thing like every day. Chicken, sweet potatoes, and broccoli over and over and over again.
That's your standard meal. Just
my standard meal.
And you don't get tired of it?
I don't get tired of it.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay, good. Well, you know what you like.
There you go.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. Like I said, you're the perfect second guest. I want to share just a little bit about how we met. Our mutual friend, Alicia, introduced us.
She's fabulous.
She's fantastic. And I always say Alicia knows the best people, not just because I know her. When I say that, I sometimes think, wait a minute,
right.
What are you talking about? But literally, she knows the best people. And I feel like some of my best friends now and the best connections I've made are from Alicia, right? That just says so much about her, and we both love her, of course. But Alicia introduced us, and I was thinking, was that just last year? Like,
yeah,
I feel like
it was a little over a year, maybe under a year.
Under a year?
I think so.
I mean, I feel like I've known you forever,
right?
But like, I can't believe that was just a year ago, right?
Yeah.
So Alicia introduced us, and we have a lot of things in common, and I feel like we have similar like hearts and spirits. And one thing I just love about you, Rich, so much is you just always have such like a calm, centered presence, and I love that about you. I always feel like whatever like chaos I created in my day, when I see you, I feel like very centered and calm.
Thank you.
And I imagine as a pastor, like that is what you offer, and you bring people. And I offer like excitement and chaos.
I was going to say, like, I love your excitement. It's great.
But whenever I'm with you, I not only feel more centered, but I feel like I need to learn from Rich. Like, how can I offer that more to my people? So I just love that, like, we've known each other this whole year,
right?
And that there's more to come in the future. So glad you're here. So how would you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are.
Yeah. I was thinking about this earlier, and just like I think the question, like we always ask, like, what do you do is the first question. And so I'll talk about that, but I've been trying to get into the more of the mode of like, how do you spend your time? What are your identities? What makes up your life? And so I'll share a little bit of that. Originally I'm from Mississippi, and so middle of nowhere, Mississippi, a small town called Gloucester, not the British spelling. It's named after a railroad captain, but anyway, grew up there. It's 20 minutes from a stoplight, 960 people, and I'm a fifth generation in the same county in Mississippi.
Wow.
So roots run deep in Gloucester, Mississippi, in the very, very south, just north of Louisiana. I went to undergrad in Birmingham, Alabama, and then grad school in Atlanta. So I'm a Southern boy through and through. And now I'm a Southerner in exile in the Midwest. But no, I love Chicago. I've moved up here 4 years ago and some change to work at a church called Urban Village Church. And I worked there for a year in a residency program, and then I transitioned, and now I am a pastor of the Inclusive Collective, which is a campus ministry primarily primarily at the University of Illinois at Chicago. We have students from some other places as well. So that's how I spend a lot of my days working there. And then I'm also like a friend, have great friends in the city. I am still a member at Urban Village. I am a boyfriend to a great guy. And I would say a wannabe contemplative as well. It's sort of and we live in the midst of a lot of chaos and distraction. And so one thing that's keeping me centered and grounded lately is trying to lean into the contemplative lifestyle. So yeah, that's a little bit about who I am.
I love that. It's so fun to like see your Southern roots like come out.
Yeah,
in the
they
city
come
too.
out. My accent thickens up when I speak in public. So perhaps right now, or when I drink wine. And I just had a glass of wine. So here we go. Bring on the y'alls and fixin' twos.
It's great. Well, how did you get here? You came here for Urban Village, right? You moved
to Chicago for Urban Village. Right.
And you've been here since.
Yeah, and I had only visited Chicago once in my life, but I visited in the summer, which is dangerous for people because if you come there in the summer, you think it's a great city, and then you get to November like today, and it's 20 degrees outside.
And you're like, what am I doing?
Exactly. But I moved here, or I visited one summer in the summer of 2012, I believe, and just loved it. I went to music in the park, the orchestra played, I ate deep dish pizza, all the touristy things. And I thought I could live here one day. And then this job came open, and it was like a dream job for me after graduating from seminary. And I just thought, like, this is going to be a place I want to move to. And my mom, of course, was like, Chicago?
Right.
It's so far away. And I have no family up here. And I had zero friends. I didn't know anyone. But it was the best move for, like, so many reasons. It's a place where I gained more confidence in my voice. It's a place where I came out. It's one of the first places I felt at home in so many senses of that word. And so I love this city.
I love that. It is magical, right? For so many of us. Like, I feel like so many of us have stories about how we became ourselves here in the city. And I don't know what the magic of the city is that causes us to become more of ourselves. But I feel like that's so common for a lot of us, right?
And I love that. And I also love, being a Southerner, I feel like Chicago has the best of both worlds. And so it has the culture and diversity and the life and vibrancy of a place like New York with the niceness, because it's in the Midwest, the niceness of the South and hospitality of the South. And so for me, it's just like this perfect place that like puts things together that I love. So I can see myself here forever, perhaps.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that.
We're in it.
We're in it. Let's go. Okay, so let's just get right to it, right? So
let's do it.
We're, on this show, on Feeding People podcast, we're really trying to highlight this idea, right, of the magic of the table, that when we gather together with friends, when we feed people, when we are fed ourselves, like something really special and beautiful happens. And I really believe all of us can do that, right? If you have a big table, if you have a no table, if you've got your couch, whatever you have, whatever food you have, whatever time you have, whatever money you have or don't have, we can all feed each other and be fed by each other.
Right.
And so I love tonight that you will be able to share some of your story about what food means to you and how you feed people, because I love it so much. So just tell me a little bit about what food means to you, and specifically like how you grew up with food in your family, what it's come to mean for you.
Yeah, totally. I think about food both in terms of the past and the present and like what it means to me. I think one of the most powerful things for me about food is the way that it sort of brings to mind and to body and heart like memories. And so how like food and like engaging the senses in that way, like when I taste certain foods, it brings me back to places, beautiful moments with family or friends or different occasions, depending on what it is. And so I do think it has that power that a lot of other things don't. And it brings you to places in ways that perhaps sometimes even like pictures don't, but that food does in a new or fresh way. So that's one of the things I love about food. It's like when you taste something, you're like, oh, that thing happened. So that's one, or like even with the smell, like when I smell bacon, it just reminds me of like my mom getting up, who knows when, to like fix me breakfast every morning.
Every morning?
Every morning.
Wow.
And then every morning breakfast, and I took my lunch to school every day.
Oh
and
my
so
gosh.
Sometimes I would bring leftovers from the night before, but often she would like get up, cook me breakfast, biscuits, eggs, bacon, and then also cook me a meal for lunch.
What?
Just like before like 7:30 in the morning. And just like,
was there ever like just a bowl of cereal for breakfast? Or no?
sometimes, but rarely. Like
Wow.
we had that in the house, but Pop-Tarts were not on the menu often. When we did eat Pop-Tarts though, this is such a Southern thing. We would, Pop-Tarts come frosted. They can.
Oh, yeah.
So we would take frosted Pop-Tarts and heat them up and then put butter on top of the frosting.
Oh my gosh, are you joking?
That's how we do it in the South. We love butter.
Oh my gosh.
It was great. So I think about like the past memories and stuff, but I also think of like present, right? Food unlocks things in us that other things don't. And so just imagining like even tonight we had a great dinner. Like this would have been a different experience had we not had good food.
Yeah.
Both the food was here. It was tasty. It sort of created an environment and it helped spark conversation in different ways than an empty table would have done. So that's powerful for me. It's comforting. It's relaxing. It creates environments. All of that. The other way I've been thinking about food a little bit more recently is also around sort of the ethics of food and also like health. And so, trying to think about ethics, both of like, animal cruelty stuff, but also climate change and also how people who is growing the food and what's happening to the land. And that has come more into mind in recent years. And to be honest, like if my ethics matched my like habits, I would eat pretty differently.
Yes.
But it is just sort of coming to the surface for me. Like, okay, how do I engage this in a way that's like healthy and mindful of like people besides me and those whom I'm eating with. And, like a couple of weeks ago, I was on retreat with my students from the Inclusive Collective, and we were making s'mores. And one of my students was like, "Rich, is this chocolate fair trade?" And I was like, "Oh,
I don't know.
I don't think Hershey's is fair trade."
I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure it's not. And we bought it, and we had a conversation around it, right? And we're not trying to be legalist about these kind of things or shaming, but it is something that I'm thinking about.
Yes.
Like, what does it mean, and what we eat involves people beyond ourselves.
Yes.
And so, how do I make that more something that I'm mindful of? I'm also like, again, a Southerner, and I grew up like the local restaurant in the next town over from me is called Vines Brothers. And everything is a buffet every day.
Oh, yes.
And everything has meat in it and everything is fried. It's like fried chicken, fried fish, fried pork chops. And then you get to the green beans, it's got a big piece of bacon in it. And then it's like the corn has like ham hock. And it's like all this stuff. So good luck being vegan or vegetarian in my hometown. No. But it's hard for me to like give up the meat and some of that stuff. But I am being more mindful of it. Yeah. Also, food has come to mean a lot more to me in the last probably couple of years around like a health aspect. And so I try and fail to eat paleo most of the time.
That's awesome.
And so paleo is a thing kind of like a marathon runner. Like if someone runs a marathon, like they ran a marathon because they talk about it.
You did run a marathon though.
I did do that. That was not like a bait for you to say that. But paleo is the same way that people talk about it. So I do that a lot. My boyfriend would say I fail more often than I make it.
That's encouraging.
But very encouraging, right? But no, it's funny. Like I don't keep snacks on my own house because I'm like, I'm paleo, I don't eat snacks.
Oh, hilarious.
And then I'll go over to his house and like raid the like cheddar Chex Mix and eat it at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
So a lot of that is about how I eat food, but like I think people have shaped how I view food a lot.
Yeah. Say more about
and
that.
So I am particularly like, I think in my life, I've been shaped way more often by women than by men. And women who were in my family life. And I think about like my grandmother who hosted Sunday lunch and made the same meal all the time. Gosh. It was like roast and potatoes and rice and gravy or something and gravy. The one thing she can't cook is turkey. And we're always sort of mindful of that around Thanksgiving. It's really dry. So anyway, you don't want that. But she's a good cook otherwise. But I also think about my mom is... one, she's a great cook. She grew up in Louisiana, but then she moved to Mississippi. And so she has this like Cajun Southern comfort food fusion going on.
Oh, wow.
And it's so good. And so, one night will be mashed potatoes and gravy and fried chicken. And then the next night is crawfish etouffee and then jambalaya and all this kind of stuff. And it's delicious. And she cooked for our family, as I said earlier, but she also cooked huge amounts of food for all sorts of people. So anytime there was a fundraiser at church, she would cook chicken spaghetti for 300 people.
Wow.
And we had we had like 2 freezers at home, and she would just like have all this Ziploc bag full of chicken spaghetti cooked for weeks. She would do like other sorts of church events and essentially cater things. She would help at weddings. One of the coolest things that food sparks memory for me is around every Friday night. I played football in high school, which some people find hard to believe, but I played football in high school, and so every Friday night after games, especially when I was a junior and senior, she would invite the whole team over, and probably 15 or 20 of us would come to my house.
Hungry high school football
We're talking
players.
like 16, 18-year-old boys who haven't eaten since 3:00 in the afternoon, who just played a 2.5-hour football game. And
I mean, if you
can
feed that group, you can feed anyone.
Exactly. That's so true. And she would make, it would not be like, oh, here's some like chips and dip.
Right.
It would be the whole works. And who knows like how much money she spent like feeding that many boys every week, but she would do it. It'd be like away games, home games. It doesn't matter. Like everybody comes and eats, and then half the group would spend the night. And then the next morning we all wake up, pretty late to the smell of bacon and like full spread of breakfast and pancakes and all this kind of stuff. And so that's big for me too, is like growing up with that kind of like my mom, and she cooked cakes for people, just so much she did. And most of it just to do out of the joy of her heart and for other people. And she knows what food can do. And so she's sort of known in our hometown as like, okay, like Miss Christie, as everyone would say, like can cook. Yeah. And chicken and dumplings. I'm just like getting really hungry.
Right.
This is why I can't be vegan, because I was raised in this way.
Bringing back all those memories. It's so, so beautiful. I mean, I feel like many of us, right, have memories and stories of moms or grandmothers who cooked special meals just for us. Now, when we think about it as adults cooking that food, we're like, how did they do that for us? And there was so much love and beauty. Yeah. And I love that. It's so cool to hear like that your mom did that, because I mean, I know we're going to get to this in a minute, but like the way that you feed people now is such a beautiful reflection of what your mom showed you growing up. That's so lovely.
You helped me make that connection a few weeks ago, and you may have asked me a question similar to this just in conversation at a coffee shop or something. And I don't know how I was telling you about my mom when the football parties, and I started thinking like, oh my gosh, that is true. Like that shaped me in such a powerful way, in a way that I perhaps didn't even fully realize until you helped me like articulate it a couple weeks ago. Yeah,
well, it's obvious to those of us, right? It's hard to see your own life, but like it's obvious to those of us. So let's just get to it, okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
So as part of what you do with the Inclusive Collective, you host a Sunday night dinner called the South Loop Community Table that I love. Kelly and I have been to, and you feed 100 people every single Sunday night who are experiencing homelessness. And I mean, not chips and salsa, like you create a beautiful meal. I think the night we were there, it was summer. It was like a barbecue theme or something. I remember having like pork and chicken and corn and like this peach cobbler. And I was like, where are we? Like, what's happening? Yeah. So you host this dinner every single Sunday night. I mean, I just want to talk all about it because I love it so much. I keep telling you, when you're not looking, I'm going to steal it from you. You know, actually what I'm going to do is like next time you need a vacation, like ask me to lead it, and then I'm going to like steal other people and your whole thing.
I'm going to come back. It's going to be like, this is Sunday Supper Church.
You just come back and be like, where are the people? And I'll be like, I don't know. I stole it. It's so awesome. I love it. So you tell us more about it, like how you feed 100 people every Sunday night.
Right. So first, I want to preface this to say that like I was texting my roommate on the way here, and I told her, I was like, I'm going to do a podcast about food, and she's kind of a smart ass, and so she responded like, you're doing a podcast about food, Jesus food? And so she meant like, are you going to do it about communion? Because like I'm not like that good of a cook myself. Yeah. And so I told you earlier, like my boyfriend makes fun of me all the time. He's like, all you eat is sweet potatoes and chicken and broccoli literally every day. And it's my way of trying to stay paleo, but that's kind of true. It's like, I do not fancy myself, and that's not being self-deprecating. It's just kind of realistic. A great cook. So South Lake Community Table, I say that to say South Lake Community Table is such a communal effort. and that it is not just like my thing. I'll talk about some partners in a second, but the way that it started was, it actually predates me. There's a ministry for mostly Roosevelt students and Columbia students, colleges here in Chicago, that called the South Loop Campus Ministry, sponsored by the Episcopal and Lutheran Church. And they, for years, have been doing a thing called Taking It to the Streets, where they will make meals, sandwiches, or soup during the winter and take it out and deliver it to people who are living on the streets as a way of, providing food and letting people know they're cared for, etc. And at the end of every month, they would do a community dinner. So they would use the Taking It to the Streets to invite people to community dinner. Well, when the Inclusive Collective launched back in August of 2015, we teamed up with them. We started doing that with them, and they were a gracious host to us. And as we started partnering, we realized, like, what would this look like instead of doing the community meal once a month if we change this to a community meal every single week? And so it was we had a Super Bowl party, and that was like that February of the next year. And we realized, like, this is really cool. Like, all these people are watching the Super Bowl together. These are people whom society says, and often the church says, like, shouldn't be together to watch the Super Bowl. Yeah. We're supposed to watch it with our own type of people. Yeah. And it was like college students from like several different universities in the city, some young adults, some people from the neighborhood, and all these folks who are experiencing homelessness, like, all watching the Super Bowl because everyone wants to see who wins. Yeah. And Lord knows the Bears aren't going to be in it. So like we all like, I don't know about sports. I really don't know much about sports. I just said that, like, they really could have been in it that year. I'm not really sure. But we hosted this meal. And we thought, we need to do this more often because this is the type of community we want to create. This is truly a community over like a charity. And so we started dreaming, what could this look like? And a few things came into play. Is one is we didn't want to be just like there are brilliant examples of like classic soup kitchens, yes, but we didn't want to be like a sterile environment where people come in, get their plate, eat their food, and leave. We wanted more than that because people have more, like, we want more than just that, right? All of us. Like when we go to a restaurant, we don't at our most meaningful meals aren't at like fast food restaurants where we go in and get out.
Yes. Sorry to interrupt, but like one of the like pivotal moments for me, even in thinking about what Sunday Supper Church could be, was Kelly and I were at I think it was my birthday. We were at Avec. Yeah. Like one of the most beautiful restaurants in the city, and we were eating this beautiful food. And I thought to myself, why is it only that like we have money to spend on dinner tonight and we can enjoy this beautiful food? Like, why can't a beautiful environment? And it's not super fancy. It's just it's beautiful and the food is delicious and wonderful. And I thought, why can't everyone? Why is money the thing that only allows people to have beautiful food on a beautiful table in a beautiful environment? Like that just can't be. How can we create really beautiful meals for all, right? So that's what you're doing.
Exactly. And I had an experience in Greece where it was like, I was there one summer and we had this dinner on this rooftop. It was like 4 hours long of just like course and then this conversation and wine and course and conversation and wine. And those experiences, right? Like everyone should be able to have those kind of communal environments. So that was a big for us. It's like not just another soup kitchen which is going to come in and get out, but a place where people could find community, where people could laugh and play and talk and get to know one another. And our community is not perfect. South Loop Community Table is not perfect, but that's what we're striving for. And we have ways to go and things to work on, but that's the kind of community we're trying to create. And so that happened. One of my friends, Ed, at the time was doing some food justice work and doing food rescuing. And so he was just like, there's all this food being thrown away from the best restaurants in Chicago every day. There's got to be a way that we can use this stuff. And so Ed was doing that work, and a woman named Missouri came in, was doing some similar work. And a lot of our food often is food rescued. And so it would have been tossed in the trash, but it is just incredible food.
I mean, it's just, I love that. Yeah. It's such a beautiful picture.
Right. And we have I remember one time we had we had bread from the Publican, a nice restaurant in Chicago. There was like a loaf of bread for everybody there. And it was like, $20 a loaf for something. something
Right.
and so good.
Fanciest bread.
Yeah, exactly.
For those with no money
Right.
to pay for it is
Right.
all Jesus, right? I know
Yeah.
you and I, we both love Jesus so
Yes.
much. And like, this is just I feel like the whole embodiment of Jesus, right?
Right.
The fanciest, most delicious bread
Right.
for the people who can't pay for it.
You know, I went to I'm derailing for a second, but I went to an anti-racism conference training about two years ago. It was a 3-day, really intensive thing. And they talk about in that the dominant values versus transformational values. And they sort of juxtapose things. And the dominant value in our culture is often scarcity.
Yes.
Like, I got to get mine.
Yes.
I got to do my thing.
Yes.
There's only so much room in the pie. Like, I got to keep it for me. But a transformational value being abundance.
Yes.
And how, like, there is enough.
Yes.
There always is enough.
Yes.
It just takes some creativity to
Yes.
figure out how we spread it around.
I love that.
And that's one thing that I love is like about South Loop Community Table. So yeah, it's a beautiful experience. And
so you feed 100 people. When we were there were kids, which I loved.
Yeah.
There were adults. There were just also, I think I met two former chefs.
Yeah,
I met a
yeah,
guy,
yeah.
I think Kenneth maybe was his name.
Probably Ron,
who like had a restaurant.
Yeah.
I mean, just like the most fascinating, wonderful people.
Right.
And you do this. And I love what you said. Like, you're not a cook. You eat your sweet potatoes and chicken every
That's
night.
right.
And this is how you feed people
Right.
these beautiful meals who are hungry. And I have no doubt like you're fed as you do that, right?
Yeah.
But what I love is that, there's often, I think that sometimes we feel like we can't have people over or we can't gather at the table because we didn't go to culinary school and we're not professionals, and like, what if my food is terrible and all that. And I just love like your story, like you're feeding so many people and you don't cook.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if you can do it, anyone can do it.
That totally.
Right?
Yeah. I view for me, it's all like we're all gifted in different ways.
Yeah.
So I view one of my strengths as creating like the container for things to happen, the space for things to happen. And so I can create an environment and use the network I have to try to create this thing. So we have a team of caterers.
Yeah.
We have 2 campus ministries that are involved. One of the coolest stories, like we have Ron who cooks a lot, who we were talking about earlier. He's actually catering our Inclusive Collective Christmas party in a few weeks. But we also, one of the coolest, a woman named Monica just found out about South Loop Community Table on Facebook as a resident of the South Loop. And she contacted me, and now she cooks once a month, these great meals. The Bridge Project is another group that cooks. Like, we just have all these people who are chipping in. Yeah. My mom cooked twice.
Oh my gosh, stop it.
Listen to this. Oh my gosh. She cooked gumbo, but she wanted to use her kitchen at home to cook gumbo.
Sure.
In Mississippi. She does not live here.
Wait a minute.
So she cooked gumbo for, we have like 80 to 100 folks.
Yeah.
She cooked gumbo for 100 people, froze it.
What?
Put it in her carry-on luggage with ice packs, and brought it to Chicago. Not one time, but twice. And both times she got checked by the TSA, and they were like, "Who is this person?"
She's like, "I got
like frozen
dinner
gumbo
to get to. Don't slow me down."
Yeah. And then she like comes to my house. She just like dumps it all over the floor, lets it thaw out, and then serves it on Sunday night. She loves it.
Unbelievable.
It's really great.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I love it. So I'm just so curious, like how has the South Loop Community Table fed you? Like what has it meant to your own spirit and your own faith as you have fed people? Because I think that all the time, like, when I invite people to my table, which I love so much, and I have a dinner party or I'm working on food for Sunday Supper Church, people are like, "Oh, thank you for the food. Thank you for having us." And I always think like, I got so much more out of this because of the conversation, of the love. Watching people eat your food when they're hungry is just like the greatest feeling in the world, right? That you fed someone really and like nourished and strengthened their body. So I often feel like everyone thanks you for making food or hosting your dinner, but then I'm the one who's like,
totally.
I was really like fed by this.
Yeah.
So how has it fed your own spirit?
Yeah. I mean, I love several months ago, maybe over a year ago, a woman in our community said this phrase. She said, we were doing a debrief for the night. We feel permission to be silly here. And I just thought, oh yeah, that's what like we're trying to create. And she said, like, in comparison to other spaces like ours, like it's very rigid and you have to do these things and follow these really strict rules and you can't play. I mean, we have karaoke and good food and all this stuff, spontaneous dance parties. And I thought, like, oh, it was like, make me come alive. Like, this is what I want to do. I want to create communities where people feel permission to be silly. And like how deep that is. Another woman this past week actually was telling me, she said, one of the things I love about here is that this gives me something to do after 5 o'clock. She was like, so many other experiences like this, they end at 5 and people go home. And she's like, I don't have much else going for me. She's like, I don't have money to go out and do things. And I was thinking, like, what if that was my life? Like, I never had I got a chance to go be somewhere after 5 p.m. She's like, this is a place that's kind of like nightlife for her. And I also love about our community, one of the things it does for me is, like, we try to intentionally have pretty blurry lines between like the volunteers and those served. And we have people doing both. We have, quote, those served who are setting up everything. We have people serving and all this kind of thing. And I learn so much from these people. One of the things I think about, I'm a millennial, I'm kind of in the middle of the pack. Not 30 yet, 29, just to be clear, on this podcast, is one of the things I think is that because especially those of us who live in urban areas, we often hang out with people who are our same age. So I go to a church where the average age is 29. I'm 29. I lead a campus ministry where almost everyone is younger than me. And so because of that, there's this like deficit of wisdom that can only be gained through age and experience. And so at South Loop Community Table, most of the folks who are experiencing homelessness are older folks. Not that older, but mostly older than 40, a lot of them at least. And so to sit at the table with somebody who's been through a war, who's been through family issues, who's been through spiritual trauma from churches, and has come out on the other side, maybe not in the way that we deem to be the other side, but in a way that it has such like emotional and spiritual maturity that I think that I at least need a shot of. Is really beautiful to sort of like, and one of the things that every week we say, this is not a they eat, we serve environment. And so if you're here, I mean, we don't force people to eat, but if you're here, you eat. And people say, oh, that's for them. I don't. No. The food is for everybody. There's enough for everybody. Abundance over scarcity. Grab a plate, sit down, have dinner. That's what this is for. And so like what I gain from those conversations is great.
That's such a beautiful point. And I feel like some of the magic of the table is you get to gather and sit next to people and eye to eye that you maybe wouldn't normally, right? And you gain that wisdom and you become friends and you see another person's perspective as you eat the same food together.
Totally. And I mean, our city has been set up that we don't sit eye to eye, right? Like we live in one of the most segregated cities in the country. Our public areas are set up in certain ways so that homeless folks can't be on them or on the property. And so this is a place where we say like, hey, all those walls are like bullshit. Like here is where everybody comes to the table. We all sit down. We all eat. Sure, there's power differentials. There always is, right? Because of the socio-economic status, et cetera. But we try our hardest to say like, those aren't going to matter here in the same way they matter in other places, because they really don't matter.
Rich, I love this so much. This is such
This is fun.
This is such a great conversation. I love what you said. Those walls are bullshit. Like at the table, the best we can. We know we can't eliminate all the barriers, right? And like it's not everyone's perfectly equal, but the best we can, everyone is equal and valued and loved and seen at this table, right?
That's right.
Oh my gosh, so beautiful. Okay.
Amen. I'm a Baptist. We say amen.
Amen. Okay, we said it. I could talk about this all day, but let's do a quick lightning round. What is the best meal you have ever had?
Okay. This is so hard. Right. I hate superlatives. But I would say I went to this restaurant in a suburb of Chicago. I can't remember the name of the suburbs. I'm not from Chicago. It was like this little restaurant. No one was there except for me and two other people. It's a catering restaurant and they have really weird hours and you just sit down and you just eat whatever they serve you. It was lunch and it lasted like 2 hours and it was so incredible. Roasted vegetables, grilled chicken. It was just like the best, freshest food I've ever had in my entire life.
Wow.
It was great.
It was like just 3 people and you didn't know what you were going to eat. And it just kept coming out.
They just came out. They were super hospitable. It was called like the Fiery Tomato or something. I don't remember the name of the restaurant.
No, you got to find the name of this.
I know. I should.
This is awesome.
Send them business.
I love it. There's so many good meals we have, right? But like
So
that
true.
just sticks right out as good food, good
It's so
environment,
good.
right?
You
It's
know-
sometimes often the most random places too,
yeah,
right? I mean,
totally.
like the best restaurants are the best restaurants, but
Right.
then sometimes it's just like the
Yeah,
most random
it's
thing,
so
right?
good. And then my mom's cooking too.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I can't leave that out. Like when she cooks like chicken and dumplings, I'm like done for.
That's it.
It's so good.
Okay, so I mean, this question's even harder, but like, what is the best Chicago restaurant according to Rich?
Okay, so you're probably gonna. People would say this is like basic, but I don't really care. I love Cafe Babariba.
Oh, it's not
I think
basic?
it's so good. You know, it's like anyway, it's so good. Their bacon wrapped dates I could eat for days,
Yes.
and their sangria I could drink like it was water all the time. It'd be really dangerous, but it's so good. I love Cafe Babariba. Here's the deal, though.
Okay.
Is in the South where I'm from, like places like Cafe Babariba do not exist. The nearest chain restaurant to me was 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
And so when we would go to places that was like a fancy dinner, we would go to Chili's.
Oh, yeah.
And that was
Us too.
seen as like a night out on the town.
Chili is the best.
It's so good. So
Right.
you want to take me somewhere? Like you take me to Chili's. My boyfriend and I went there like a month ago and got the like 2 for $20 deal or something.
The chips
and
and
we were
queso?
so happy. Chips and queso, a margarita, an entree, and a dessert. Like you
Come on.
cannot beat that. It's so good.
So Cafe Babariba and
Chili's. Yes. And come at me, any haters, and I'll prove you wrong.
This is so great. This is what I love about this show is like there's food and restaurants for everyone,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
There's so much good stuff in Chicago. We really could spend like
I
our
know,
whole life,
right?
right? Plus
So true.
eating at it. All right, Rich, this has been so great. I've had such a great time talking to you about the way that you feed people, the way food influenced you. I loved hearing about your mom. That was so much fun. Will you just wrap us up? You said so many great things about being fed and what it means to be at the table. Will you just wrap us up with a final piece of wisdom?
Yeah, I think what I was saying earlier about like not having to wait until you have it all together to like try to hosting. You don't have to be a perfect cook. I'm not. You don't have to have the fanciest space. I'm not. Like, just like do it and have fun. This Saturday, my boyfriend and I are hosting Gays Giving, which is a popular thing. It's not to be confused with Thanksgiving.
No,
Gays
not to be
Giving,
confused.
very different environments. And it's just a potluck in his house. And we're like, where's everybody going to sit? And we're like, I don't know. 20 people are coming now.
20
and like,
people.
I think the last count was 17. So 17 people are coming. We don't have 17 chairs, but we're going to make it work.
Yeah.
And people, it's potluck. And we're all just have like a Facebook poll going about who's bringing what. And it's going to be really relaxed. And we'll play games and drink wine. And it's going to be really fun. So just like
About being
do
together.
it.
Right. Just, I love it. Just do it. Right?
Right.
Just invite the people. You figure out the chairs later.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Rich, thank you so much. I'm so glad you were here. I'm so thankful for you in my life and all that you do. And do not turn your back on the South Loop community table because I'm going to take it from you.
Yes. No, this was so much fun. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Rich.